Time to switch gears and check in on another sci-fi adventure game. Farscape role-playing game. This is based on the TV show. It ran from 1999 to 2003. There's 4 seasons, and of course, unfortunately, it got canceled after the fourth season, and the storytelling was cut short by a season. So what they did do in 2004 is that they did release like a mini series called the Peacekeeper Wars to kind of like in a sense do a condensed fifth season for the kind of tie up the show and everything. So this game is actually based on the TV show, and of course I came across this probably like about like 2000 2001, and I instantly fell in love with it, and I consider it one of, if not the best sci-fi show like out there. Of course, people will probably like argue that Star Trek is probably the best TV show out there. So like personally, I never really became like a big fan of Star Trek and everything. So this is why I'm biased more towards the being like a what is known as a scaper. You got your Star Trek fans known as Trekkies, while Farscape fans are known as Scapers. So this is a role-playing game based on that TV show, and so this actually uses the D20 system that was introduced with the third edition of D&D. So if you're familiar with that, it's really not too hard to jump right into this. And so like you got your usual table of contents that gives you the breakdown of the chapters and everything, so you can like do a quick reference. So like every other book, like it has like the it has like an introduction. So this one introduction is actually like a little like a short story of like the actual characters that appear in like the TV show. So this short story is actually like portraying Dargo and like the main character John Crichton. So the whole concept of the TV show is about John Crichton, who's an astronaut who, like in a sense, he's testing his like spaceship, like in a sense, to do like a slingshot theory, where he's using like the Earth's gravity, where like he'll come down, use the Earth's gravity, and kind of like slingshot out to kind of like travel at unrecorded speeds to in a sense to start intergalactic travel and everything. And of course, things go wrong where he gets sucked into a wormhole and gets shot to the other side of the galaxy. And of course, it's all about him kind of trying to figure out how like what's going on, and how things are, and how to get back home and everything. So like it's all like a story about in a sense an American astronaut, John Crichton, trying to get back home and everything. So it starts off like with like the synapses of like the actual like each one episode of like a season 1 and 2 in this book. So like and of course this is like always good for like one-liners, and of course you can see here a line from like Dominar Rigel the 16th. So like he's another character that shows up in the book. So this show is great for like one-liners as well. So like you see the character Aaron Sun played by Cody Black, and this is from one of the scenes where like in the first season. So and so in this first part, it goes over, like I said, like the first it gives a synopsis of the episodes for the first 2 seasons, so you don't necessarily have to watch the show itself to get into it, into the role-playing game, even though like it's definitely worth watching and everything. So like I said, this is great show for like one-liners and everything. So like and so this first whole chapter is like a introduction to like the actual episode. So you can see like the shows characters like and like it even has quotes from the TV show itself. So all these like one-liners and stuff are from actual quotes of the characters made during the TV show and everything. So like so this, like I said, this whole first section is all like episode synapses of the first 2 seasons. And so like so this way like you get a synopsis of like the whole universe. And so like this book is set up to take place between like seasons 2 and 3. So, and of course, like in my opinion, just like the show just kept getting better and better with each season. So, like I said, I kind of felt bad that it got cut short by a season, but like they did make it up for the Peacekeeper Wars, like I said. So this is probably my favorite line from the show. No more Captain Kirk chit chat. So, and like I said, they got lines from the actual TV episodes and everything. So yeah, here's a picture of like a Rigel character I met that I mentioned. So you can see like this whole first section is like relatively quite long, as it gives, like I said, synopsis of like the first 2 seasons, and then of course this next chapter you actually get like the character portrayals and like a background on them. So like you have John Crichton, you have Aaron Sun, you have Dargo, and so he's a Luxon, so like he's pretty much like the Star Trek's he's the Farscape's version of Star Trek's Klingons. And of course like Pao Zan. And what's interesting is like she's part of the Delvians, which are actually like a plant-based species instead of like your mammalian type character races like us and everything. So then you got Chiana, who's in the Bari, and Rigel, the little Hynerian Dominar, which is basically pretty much the emperor of the Hynerian Empire. So like, and he was a puppet character. So then of course you got like Moya and Pilot. Like Moya is the actual ship that they're on. They travel through space, so they actually treat and like this is Moya is a living sentient ship itself, and like a pilot is actually like a race that can bond to them and become pilots to them. So then of course like a pilot's race can't travel outside their own planet, because like the way their like biology is, they can't survive outside of the biology of their the whole biosphere of their planet. So like they are able to bond with the Leviathan. Of course it's for life, and so like they end up dying with them, but it's the payoff is that they can actually travel the stars with him. So like you got your main villain here, like that starts off the series, Byler Crace, who's like a military captain of the peacekeepers, and of course then you're introduced to Scorpius, who's probably like one of it, if not the best villain ever, and he's introduced at the end of season 1. And so like he's typical of every like type of villain that you want, like someone who's intelligent, ruthless, and vile, and despicable, and like basically like your stereotypical version of like a villain, but he takes it to the next level. So then you get into the actual like races. So like the Bannocks are like here you see the character Stark, he's a Bannock. So it actually goes into like the actual descriptions of like each race. So like it goes into the description of the Bannocks here, goes into the descriptions of like the Delvians. So you can actually make like different races, sort of just like in D&D, where you can make elves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, humans. So you got Hynerians basically, which is what Rigel the 16th is. And then you get into here like Ilonics, that they do appear in like an episode in season 1, and so they're kind of cousins to the Luxons. So like, and then of course like you got the Luxons, like I said, they're pretty much like the Farscape's version of the Klingons. They're kind of like the warrior type race and culture, and so like the Bari, you can play as like them, and of course like you also got like Ascarans, who like in later seasons, in like season 3 and especially in season 4, and so they become like the big bad villains after Scorpius and everything. So like and of course like each season is built upon the last and everything. So then like and of course like throughout here like and of course like you also got Sebastians, which Aaron Sun is part of it. They are known as the Peacekeepers. Like the biggest faction is the Peacekeepers, which Aaron Sun was a part of. And so like they're pretty much like an offshoot of the humans and everything. So like they actually explain this all in the series, and how like they came about and everything. So like definitely need to watch the whole series, so that way you can get like the whole background information and everything. And so like of course like there's also like even though the Peacekeepers are the biggest sect of the Sebastians, there are the breakaway colonies, and like you get to see some of them in like the season 2. And of course, you got the Shiangs, which are basically your intergalactic pirates. So, and there's like they actually have an ability where they can like spit fire like dragons. And like I keep saying, this show is great for like one-liners, because this like Crichton says this after the first time he meets the Shiangs in like the episode PK Tech Girl. And like Tavlex, you see here, like they're pretty much like mercenaries, like mercenary type warriors, and they had, you can see like on here, you had the purple like thing, like they had this gauntlet that like introduces like a drug to them, like sort of like a steroid type of drug that like lets them be like in a sense like become like a super soldier, almost like Captain America. And like and then like you got the Volcarians. These pretty much are like your trackers, and so like you can kind of get a sense that they're wolf-like tracker characters, races, and they're still kind of like tribal and animalistic, even on like an intergalactic standard. And of course, like you got the Zenitans, who like are like another type of like a pirate slash mercenary. They're like in like they're notorious for being like the garbage collectors of the galaxy and everything. So like you do meet one of them in like through like the first season or so, and of course then in chapter 4 the whole like TV show and everything is set in what's known as the uncharted territories. So this gives like the whole description on like several different planets that you can visit and use in your campaign and everything. So like they do go to some of these in the TV show and everything. So like this is why like it's a good idea to like to watch the TV show, so you can actually get like a visual of some of the like, locales that like you're actually going to in this in a campaign that's set in this universe and everything. So like it just pretty much like keeps going further into detail on like all different like other planets and systems that you find in the what's known as like I said, the uncharted territories. So like in a sense, like this whole first section is nothing like these whole first few chapters are nothing but like the background information for you, and then like you can see here you finally get into in chapter 5 character creation. So like character creation pretty much runs like the same kind of concept as like third edition for D&D and Pathfinder, with this being like a D20 system. So you can see like it runs like the exact same abilities score system, just like the D20 system that you see in like a third edition and Pathfinder, and uses the same 6 abilities like strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and like charisma. So like and of course like it has like instead of like an instance hit dice, it has a wound die. So like it's the same concept, just worded differently. And so like instead of like each class, like you get like each race gets like a certain like in a sense like a hit point dice, and then of course you get a modifier for like the actual class that run and everything. So like and of course like it has like a control system that you can use, like kind of like a willpower. It runs like the same kind of concept of willpower in the Trinity game and Aberrant game that I went over before. So like and of course like it goes further into like the character creation with the character races, and so it gives like in a sense like a description on all the abilities, and like also it gives like ability modifiers for like each individual race. So like this chapter gives you like the whole background information that you need to run like each character that you're going to run. So like it gives you several different options of the pretty much all the like the races that you saw in the previous chapter. So that's like what this goes into and everything. So then it actually gets into like the actual classes, just like any other book would. And so it gives like a same concept as like third edition and Pathfinder. You have advancement, and it goes up to like same progression type of deal for each type of class, even though like the abilities and like modifiers and how you like implement them into a sci-fi campaign like this is like a kind of different because you have like a different you're looking at sci-fi versus fantasy and everything, but like the same kind of concept is like overall the same. So like I said, if you have any like a background with Pathfinder or D&D with like 3rd edition and everything, or 3.5, you'd be like it'd be so easy to be able to jump into this game, because like the gameplay system is pretty much exactly the same, being the D20 system. So like it wouldn't be too hard, like I keep reiterating, it wouldn't be too hard to kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of get I've played 3rd edition, I played Pathfinder for years, and like, oh, this is the same kind of concept. Okay, it's like just pretty much learn the lingo and everything. So like it does introduce like a background sort of as like a feats type of deal. So like so you definitely have like a whole like a litany of information on like just character creation with like show backgrounds, which are feats, and of course your skills, your like character classes, races, and like and so it's like I'll reiterate, it's relatively easy to get into this, being based on the D20 system that the 3rd edition and Pathfinder are based on. So that haven't been introduced to that myself. I picked this up like probably like this time probably like 15-20 years ago, and like it was relatively easy to like oh yeah, okay, we can like go from one of those to one of these, no problem, and everything. And like it's a lot like, and of course and vice versa, so you can play this and then like get into any other D20 system and not have any difficulty, in a sense, being able to transition from one to another. So then, like, it also has like typical core rulebooks. It also has like a whole chapter on like the different types of equipment that you can use, and it gives like pictures of the different type of like weapons that you can use, different types of equipment that you can also pick up and everything. So like, and of course like tools and stuff, and like DRDs, the diagnostic repair drones. You find those in the Leviathans, like I mentioned with Moya. So this whole book is like any core rule book. The only thing you would need to run like a campaign setting. So like I haven't checked like since picking this up to see if they made any like supplemental books on this. Because like I said, the TV show ran from 99 to 2003 or 2002, 2003, because it ran for 4 years, and then it had like in 2004 a Peacekeeper miniseries to finish off the series. So like, and this book was pretty much written right around that time. So like, you're looking at like a good posting this like 20 year, almost like 20 years after like the release of the Peacekeeper Wars to pretty much end everything. So like. If there hasn't been someone that's picked this up and everything, I would definitely love to see someone like in a sense start expanding on this, because like it's one of the if not the greatest sci-fi show that's out there. And now they have I'm pretty sure, I'd have to look at the comics I get, but I'm pretty sure it's IDW that did like a comics that kind of took like that expanded the story after the Peacekeeper Wars, which is kind of cool. So like they did expand on the universe with comics, at least, and everything. So, and further in here, you can see that gets into the actual like details of like things like poison, disease. You can see encumbrance and like all the different types of like stuff you might run into like running like a campaign. So this part would be like for like more gears toward like the DM or the GM, or like whatever you call it, like the game master, dungeon master, or the narrator, or pretty much the one who runs the campaign, who isn't one of the PCs. And of course, they also like with it being a space opera, it wouldn't be complete without actually giving descriptions of like actual spaceships and everything. So like in space combat, and like just like you would find in maybe like a Starfinder or any Star Wars like RPG game. And of course like it actually gives like descriptions of each type of like ships that like typical ships that each race uses. So like it gives like for instance like the Peacekeepers, like here you can see like it gives like description of like a capital ship, their command carrier, kind of, and then it gives a description of like in a sense like a transporter, and they're like a base starfighter, and like the same thing like with the Nambari gives descriptions of like spaceships they use. So it goes into the depth of like each spaceship types of spaceship that each race uses. And of course you can see here like it gives a description of like a Farscape 1, which is the spaceship that John Crichton uses to run that experiment that ends up throwing him into the wormhole that I mentioned. He gets shot to the other side of the galaxy, which in a sense sets off the whole chain of events for the whole TV show and everything. So, and of course it does give like a description of like spaceships that aren't unique to each race and everything. So it does give you background information to be able to do that and everything. And of course they have like a whole chapter just devoted to being a game, and this iteration it's not DM, it's the GM, Game Master, as you can see. So it gives like a whole litany of information for the GM to be able to run adventures and everything. So this is definitely like a good source for running like a not just a campaign based on the TV show, but something that would be, if you're sick and tired of playing D&D or Pathfinder, or you don't necessarily want to play Starfinder, like the videos I've done before, which you can get into, you can run this and everything. So like I'm sure you can probably find this book off of Amazon or Temu or like whatever that you use. And of course it does give description of like monsters, as you can see, that you will most likely run into through like space. So like and it gives like a description of like a character called the Budong, which is like in a sense a gigantic whale-sized space creature that you do see in the series in both seasons 2 and 3. And of course, like it's like kind of that like scary monster. It's like an equivalent to the Tarrasque in D&D type of deal. So this whole back section is like for monsters and stuff for GMs to help round out like any like campaign ideas, like the throw like stuff at like at people or at your PCs. So like I said, me being like a big Farscape fan, I fell in love with it when I first saw like a sci-fi channel way back when. I'm sure some like around the turn of the century and everything. If you're old enough, you probably remember they were running like a Friday night shows, and like Farscape was one of them that was on there, like along with like the Invisible Man. So like late one Friday night, I was watching like my first episode I saw was PK Tech Girl, so that's pretty much how I got hooked and everything. So, but like I said, you don't necessarily have to watch the show to get hooked into this game and everything, but it's definitely worth watching, so that way you know like the whole back information of the characters. And so like you can see here that gives information, like it actually writes out like the characters that you see in the show, and it like writes them out like so you could in a sense use them as NPCs and everything. So like you see John Crichton, Aronson, Dargo, Zan, Shanna. So like it pretty much writes out like all the characters of the show. So like I said, you could use them as NPCs and everything. So like Scorpius, the villain that I mentioned, and it does have like a copy of like the in a sense the character sheet that you can get photocopy and or print out and everything to be able to like write out characters and everything. So and like everything has like an index where you can find like information of the concepts and stuff of the stuff in this book and everything. So this is Farscape, the role-playing game based off of the TV show, and it's definitely worth picking up if you want like a sci-fi type of role-playing game. And like I said before, you definitely got to check out the TV show, because with being a big fan, it's probably one of, if not the top sci-fi game out there. So like this is definitely worth checking out.